Welcome, everyone, to another episode of The Asylum with Harley and Joker. Once again, this week, no Joker. I am trying to figure out why
I'm just the sport cat. So.
why my post is saying it is only me on Facebook. I don't understand that.
I don't know. Well, hello there, Brenda. Brenda, I sent you. If you wanted to join the show, you can. So, yeah. I can't help you with Facebook. I have enough problems figuring out my studio.
Well, I don't know why it's like changed it to where it's only me that's allowed to see it.
That's weird.
And I'm like, okay, that don't make sense, but okie dokie. Well, I guess they'll just have to watch it on something else. Yes, Brenda, if you'd like to join, we can send you a link and you can join in. Yeah. Okay, so today's episode, we're discussing some prisoners who survived their execution.
Welcome, Chris. Welcome.
Hello. So we are discussing criminals who were up for execution, but they actually survived it. And one of them, like their execution was years later because of the failed execution. Hello, everybody from the Sportscat Show.
Yeah. We're live on the Sportcat channel, and we're just hanging out. I'm filling in once again. Had a few free moments, and I said I would jump in here. I don't know anything about executing people, so...
Okay, here we go.
3rd, 1946, inmate Willie Francis felt 2,000 volts of electricity surge through his body during his
crazy.
Execution in the
he
electric
was like
chair.
16.
Miraculously, he survived. But what happened next will leave you speechless. Here are 10 stories of inmates who, against all odds, survived their own execution and the shocking events that followed. Welcome to Criminal Records.
Criminal Records.
10, Kenneth Smith.
In the controversy, convicted killer Kenneth Smith requested to die by having pure nitrogen pumped into his lungs. But this type of execution has never been attempted.
They didn't do that
on
until
November 17th, 2022. Kenneth Smith, a hitman from the U.S., was brought to the execution chamber, despite one of the highest courts.
So
in the
with
country
this one, they
delay.
went
In the
and gave him lethal
Smith was hired
injection.
By preacher Charles Sennett Sr. to end the life of his wife, Elizabeth Sennett.
They blew his veins and
overwhelmed
stuff.
By a massive debt, planned her death with the intention of collecting life insurance. He paid Smith and another man,
I heard most of this one.
$1,000 each for the job. However, the plan didn't go as expected, leading to
That's
Smith's
cheap.
capture and death sentence. After
this was back
33 years
in
on death row, a date was set for his execution.
1988.
But when the time came, the 3-person team in charge of administering the lethal injection failed to find an intravenous line. They repeatedly punctured his arms while he screamed and begged them to stop. In a desperate attempt, they even punctured his muscle, causing excruciating pain. In his own words, Smith recounted, when they couldn't find a suitable vein, they ordered the guards to tilt the gurney back so that my feet pointed to the ceiling and my head hung down toward the floor, like in an inverted crucifixion. Their masks were covered in my blood, and they eventually punctured my clavicle in an attempt to insert a central intravenous line into the subclavian artery. After 4 hours of failed attempts, they finally returned him to his cell, complying with the court order to halt the execution. His lawyers described the experience as disturbing and traumatic, something most would agree with. But the worst was yet to come. On August 26, 2000.
Okay, so from what we heard already, he was executed because he took part in an assassination. Yeah, well, he was a hitman. And so he was convicted March 18th, 1988. And the execution took place originally in November 2020. Oh, no. Okay, so it actually took place. Parker was executed via lethal injection in June 2010. So in 2022, he was scheduled for the actual injection. Well, it all went wrong, and he didn't actually get he got executed by nitrogen oxide in January 25th of 2024. So he spent many, many years.
Well, they make it sound so bad about missing IVs. I can't tell you how many times in the back of an ambulance I've missed an IV, and very few of them were screaming and yelling. And so, I mean, I didn't miss like 20 or anything, but you know, I can't see that. I think that was a little dramatized, and so, yeah, I think he probably got lucky on that one. He had people that had no damn idea what they were doing. So,
I mean,
and so they were talking about putting in a subclavian line. That's a surgical procedure that usually requires a doctor. I mean, I know how it's done, but it's usually done. I mean, obviously in this case, you wouldn't worry about being sterile, but it's usually done in a much different manner. You're sedated and don't even know it.
Oh my! But it's crazy. Like he said that their mask was covered in his blood, and so that means when they messed up, it was squirting everywhere.
Yeah, that would be hitting an artery instead of a vein. So yeah. It happens. One of my very first IV attempts, I hit an artery, and I thought it was kind of weird watching it go back up into the bag. I'm like, wait a minute, that's not right. So I fixed it.
The state of Alabama decided that Smith would be executed by nitrogen hypoxia, a method never before used, and the U.S. authorities believed that, after having escaped death so many times, this was the only way to end his life. In this procedure, Smith would simply inhale the gas until he lost consciousness and died. On January 25, 2024, Kenneth Smith's execution was carried out. Smith, 58, made a final statement through a mask, which muffled his words. Tonight, Alabama made humanity take a step back.
Oh, it was in
said
Alabama.
Smith. I leave with love, peace, and light. I love you all. Thank you for supporting me. Witnesses saw him dressed in his prison uniform, covered with a white sheet up to his chest. He was strapped to the gurney in two places, with a strap around his stomach and another across his chest. During the execution, he violently shook on the gurney, and the process lasted about 25 minutes. After having cheated death once, this time there was no escape. Number 9. Rommel Broom. On September 15, 2009, convicted rapist and murderer Rommel Broom was scheduled to be executed by lethal injection in the state of Ohio. However,
that was
the
up here with
executioners
us.
faced issues that made it impossible to carry out that day. Broom was born on June 4, 1956 in Michigan, and moved to Ohio with his mother at the age of 5. Over time, he became involved with bad influences that shaped the course of his life. His criminal history began in 1974 with car thefts on highways, but
Of
soon
course,
escalated
it's
to more
Cleveland,
serious
Ohio. What do you
crimes, including
expect?
rape and murder. The crime that led him to death row was the kidnapping, rape, and murder of Trina Middleton, a young woman who was walking home with her friends after a football game in
That's
East
quite common
Cleveland,
here in Ohio,
After
too.
being identified through DNA evidence, he was arrested,
Because there was
convicted,
that
and
big
sentenced to
case
death by
where
lethal injection.
they made the
However,
movie of the
his
girl
execution
who
turned
got
into an
kidnapped and
unexpected
stuck in the
struggle.
basement
For
for
over 2
years.
hours, the executioners unsuccessfully attempted to find
I
a
know where
suitable
that house
vein
is,
to
too.
administer the lethal drugs. During the process, Broom suffered extreme pain from the repeated punctures in his arms. Eventually, the state of Ohio intervened and halted the execution. Initially, it was rescheduled for a week later, but over time, his lawyers succeeded in delaying it for years. Broom even wrote a book about his traumatic experience. Although a new execution date was set for 2022, it never took place. On December 20th, 2020, Rommel Broom passed away due to complications from COVID-19. While he ultimately died on death row, it is undeniable that he managed to evade his execution and live far longer than the state had originally planned.
Well, some of these comments in the chat, it's like, wow. We can't hear you, Glenn.
That's right, because I'm muted. they talk about it looked like they only tried like 6 or 8 times, it being so painful. I mean, come on, try riding in the back of an ambulance doing 70 miles an hour down the road. That didn't hurt. That was an excruciating pain. Good Lord. It hurt, I'm sure. Don't get me wrong, but
yeah, being stabbed at any amount of time hurts.
But once again, did they know what they were doing? That's the thing.
Probably not.
Yeah. There's just it's a simple technique.
I mean, when they put people on death row, they don't exactly get professionals to come in and do the actual lethal injection. It's like they just have someone, whoever's on staff, come in and do it.
You know, I'd like to see the job description for that.
Or the requirements. 25 minutes to die from nitrogen had to be awful. That's what he originally requested that, Chris. He really did. Like, if you listen, he requested to die by liquid nitrogen, and then they gave him lethal injection, and then they blew the artery or whatever it was, because they said blood was going everywhere. And then they said that they flipped him upside down like a reverse crucifix.
Trendelenburg.
And then they postponed it and did that instead. But that's what he requested originally.
I don't know. I've started lots of IVs.
It makes you wonder, like, with all that nitrogen going into his lungs, did his lungs explode and that's how he died?
I think nitrogen is heavier than oxygen. So I'm thinking the way it bonds to the red blood cell, it basically just fills the red blood cells up to the point where they're, for lack of better terms, heavy. But I mean, I'm not talking like you couldn't lift them. I'm talking like the red blood cells couldn't get oxygenated and couldn't move through the system. So that's my guess. And I think that also a lot of divers have suffered from this. So, but yeah. And the one nitrogen bubble can kill you. So I don't understand. So,
and he was there for 25 minutes with that much nitrogen running into his system. Yeah. So I don't see why it took 25 minutes, but I guess they wanted to make sure he was good and dead because the first time failed.
Probably. Yeah, I wouldn't think it would take that long, but what do I know? Timothy, you're quite awesome over there. So in the chat.
Yeah. Some of what he's saying is awesome.
Yeah. Well.
Number 8, William Duell. There's a reason why hanging was discontinued as a method of execution. In the past, several people survived, including a young man named William Duell. Duell was a minor when he was convicted as an accomplice in the attack on Sarah Griffin in England. On November 24, 1740, he was hanged at Tyburn along with 4 other convicts. His body was left hanging for about 20 minutes, and after being declared dead, he was lowered and taken to an anatomy theater for dissection. However, after his clothes were removed and he was placed on the table, one of the attendants noticed something strange. Duell was breathing slowly. Over the hours, his breathing grew faster.
Probably both,
he managed
Chris.
to sit up and speak. Unfortunately for him, the doctors reported to the authorities, and that very night he was returned to prison. It was discovered that, due to the pressure of the rope on his neck, he had suffered a bout of delirium, preventing him from remembering his execution. The next day, he had fully recovered. The news spread quickly, and the public celebrated his unexpected survival. He was eventually pardoned due to his mental state, and his sentence was commuted to penal transportation, meaning his exile to North America. He spent the rest of his life in Boston, where he is said to have died around 1805.
Here.
Number 7, John Lee.
He was one of our legal immigrants that came in. He was an undocumented citizen.
They sent him here to where he could procreate and make more of the negative genes. And
well, you know, a lot of times when Europe was done with you, that's what they would do. They would put their prisoners on ships and send them over to what is now the United States. So, And now they're still doing it. And when you have a vegetable in charge for 4 years, that's kind of what happened.
Okay.
23rd, 1885, there were 3 failed attempts to execute John Lee by hanging, all of them unsuccessful. John Lee was
Soul
born
said
in
they
England
liked the
on
new
August
show.
15th,
Good deal.
1864. At the age of 21, he was convicted of ending the
He has
life of
joined
his
the
employer,
asylum
Emma
and will be
Keyes,
filling
in her
in
own
every now and
home.
then.
The only strong evidence against
Sounds
him was
good.
the fact that he was the only man present in the house at the time of the crime, along with his criminal history and some cuts on his arm. Despite
Yeah,
Lee
that'll do
insisting
it.
on his innocence, he was sentenced to hang. On the day of the execution, he was led to the gallows, with the rope tightened around his neck and a sack covering his head. However, when the
He said
executioner
sack.
pulled the lever to open the trap door, nothing happened. He tried several times, but the trap door simply wouldn't open. It was an embarrassing moment for everyone present, and the coroner decided to suspend the execution. Lee was returned to his cell while the mechanism was tested again. It worked perfectly with each attempt,
Watch it
but as
not
soon
work.
as Lee was placed on the trap door, it failed again. Throughout the entire process, Lee remained calm, claiming that his faith in God would save him. What happened next? A judge commuted his sentence to life imprisonment. Years later, after several appeals and new evidence showing that he might not have been the only man in the house the night of the crime, his innocence was determined, and he was released in 1907. What happened to him afterward remains a mystery. Some versions say he died in a mental asylum in Tavistock during World War II, while others claim he moved to the United States, where he became a
Probably.
speaker and passed
Yeah.
away in Milwaukee in 2009. Regardless of the truth, John Lee will always be remembered as the man who couldn't be hanged.
Well, that looks bad on the state right there, or wherever it was. The fact that they tried many times to hang him and the door wouldn't open. And then they tried it before. They put him up there and it worked. And then they put him up there and then it didn't work.
It
Something
sounds-
was making it where he wasn't supposed to be hung.
Yeah, was it divine intervention? I don't know. So
Sasquatch did it.
aliens. It's aliens. It's always those damn
Exactly.
aliens.
Number 6, Anne Green. On December 14th,
Like, have you
1650,
noticed a lot
Anne
of these,
Green,
like,
a
older
domestic
ones
servant in
are
England,
really
was executed
young?
by hanging after
Yes.
being found guilty of infanticide. However, her story has been told for centuries due to its incredible outcome. Born in 1628, Anne worked in the house of Sir Thomas Red, a justice of the peace living in
There was
Oxfordshire.
one that's
During her
coming
time
up.
there,
He was
she
like
was seduced by her
16.
employer's grandson, Geoffrey Red, who left her pregnant. At 17 weeks, Anne had a miscarriage. Fearing retaliation, she tried to hide the remains, but they were discovered, leading to her being accused of ending the infant's life. She was sentenced to hang
Exactly.
and executed at the famous Oxford
Wow.
Castle. Her body remained hanging for 30 minutes before being lowered, placed in a coffin, and handed over to the doctors at the University of Oxford for dissection. What is shocking is that Anne never died. For 24 hours, she was without food, water, and with little oxygen until, just before the doctors began to dissect her body, one of them noticed she still had a pulse. Imagine
Wow.
their surprise when they saw Anne slightly move her body. Immediately, he and other doctors began resuscitating her, administering medications until she could finally speak and move on her own. 3 days later, Sir Thomas Reed passed away, leaving no authority to revoke her pardon. However, her case caused a disturbance, with a group of people demanding that she be executed again. Fortunately, no one listened to them, and Anne was released. Many saw her story as divine intervention, a miracle that saved her from death. Eventually, Anne lived a peaceful life, married, had 3 children, and died in 1659. Number 5.
Just hanging around.
So to answer your question, that is up for you to determine. That is not up to me to tell you. So
She hung there for 30 minutes
yeah,
and still survived. Went
Yeah.
24 hours without food or water and little oxygen. Yeah, Chris.
they should
Completely.
they should use paramedics. We're trained professionals. So
Like, did they not? Oh my gosh. If I was then, I would have checked for a pulse after getting her off there to make sure she was really dead.
Well, the whole purpose of the hanging isn't so much just the asphyxiation. It's supposed to be a
It's
sudden
supposed to
jolt
snap the spine
that,
and
that breaks the neck, and then you you'd have no oxygen. So, but I don't know.
but I guess that didn't happen.
Yeah. I don't know. I
Willie
personally think
Francis.
that they're
We've
crazy.
seen cases of people who
Yeah.
survived lethal injection, but what about an execution in the electric
Yeah, this
chair?
one, he was
That seems
16.
impossible. However, in 1946, a young African American named Willie Francis survived an attempted execution in the electric chair, an event that remains one of the greatest anomalies in the
This one
history
was
of the
crazy
death penalty
right here.
in the United States. 2 years earlier, in 1944, a pharmacist from St. Martinville, Louisiana, named Andrew Thomas was found dead after receiving multiple gunshots. It was said that Thomas had been abusing young people in the area, leading many to believe that Willie Francis might have been one of his victims. For 9 months, the case remained unsolved until, in August 1945, Willie, only 16 years old, was arrested as the primary suspect. According to the
No
police,
evidence
he was found
whatsoever.
with Thomas's wallet,
Yeah.
but no
Just
evidence
that.
ever proved this. Moreover, the weapon used in the crime belonged to the county sheriff's assistant, August Fusilier, which raised even more
Interesting.
doubts about Willie's guilt. Despite the lack of concrete evidence, he was pressured into signing 2 written confessions, likely obtained under coercion. His trial was a sham. The defense attorneys didn't call any witnesses or raise objections, and
Somebody
within
mad
just
at
2
you now?
days, an all-white jury found him guilty and sentenced him to death. On May 3rd, 1946, Willie was taken to the electric chair. However, the execution failed. The portable electric chair had been improperly installed by a prison guard who was drunk, preventing the current from
The
killing
prison
him.
guard who was
Against
drunk.
all odds, Willie Francis survived.
You
After
forgot
this
to plug it
incident,
up.
a lawyer named Bertrand
No,
DeBock
they
took on his
electrocuted him. He
case
just
and appealed
survived
to the
it.
Supreme Court, arguing that not only had the execution been inhumane, but there were also serious irregularities in the trial. Among them, key evidence such as the murder weapon and Andrew Thomas's body had disappeared days before the trial. Despite the
that's not
evidence that the
fishy.
judicial process had been riddled with errors, the Supreme Court rejected the appeal. On May 9, 1947, 1 year after his first attempted execution, Willie Francis was sent back to the electric chair. This time, there were no mistakes. His last words were directed at a reporter. "I'm going to meet the Lord with my Sunday pants and my Sunday heart." Even today, his case serves as a reminder of the flaws in the justice system and the brutality of the death penalty.
Yes, there are flaws in the justice system, and back then we didn't have all the technology we do today. So
The drunk guy had it set up to kill the guy pulling the switch.
yeah, exactly.
It sounds like it. Completely what it sounds like. Okay, here we go to number
Quattro,
4.
Alan Eugene Miller. By now, the state of
Always
Alabama
Eugene.
might deserve to be banned from carrying out executions by lethal injection, because it seems they never managed to get it right. In the case of Alan
Exactly.
Eugene Miller, not only did they fail to administer the lethal drugs, but they almost killed him due to the numerous injuries inflicted on his body during the failed execution attempt. On September 22, 2022, Miller was scheduled to be executed by lethal injection for the murders of Lee Holdbrooks, Christopher Scott Yancey, and Terry Jarvis, committed in 1999 during a delusional episode. However, when it came time for his execution, prison officials encountered serious difficulties locating a suitable vein to insert the intravenous line. For an hour and a half, the executioners tried unsuccessfully to find venous access, repeatedly piercing his arms.
They really need to
hands, and
hire
feet.
better people
Desperate,
to
they
do
began
this stuff.
inserting needles into various parts of
Especially
his
in
body with
Alabama.
no success. Miller remained conscious throughout the procedure, feeling each puncture and the pain it caused. After nearly 2 hours of failed attempts, they strapped him tightly to the gurney with a chest strap and tilted him upright. With his limbs bleeding, the executioners finally left the execution chamber, leaving Miller tied up, alone, and severely injured. 30 minutes later, he was removed from the gurney, his wounds were treated, and he was returned to his cell. Against all odds, Alan Eugene Miller had survived his execution. What happened next? His lawyers continued to fight for a change in his method of execution, arguing that Alabama had demonstrated its inability to carry out lethal injections effectively. His case was the third in 4 years in which the state of Alabama failed in an execution, sparking a strong debate over lethal injection as a method of capital punishment. Finally, Alan Eugene Miller was executed on September 26, 2024, by hypoxia through nitrogen deprivation. Number 3, John Smith. If there were a record for the most executions survived by a single person, that record would belong to John Smith. Born in 1661, Smith was a thief and robber in London. However, before taking this criminal path, he served in the Navy as a commercial sailor, and later in the war as a soldier aboard, until he was discharged after the famous Battle of Vigo Bay. Shortly afterward, he enlisted as a soldier and began associating with bad company, which ultimately led him to a life of crime. On December 5, 1705, he was found guilty of 2 charges and sentenced to death. At first, Smith didn't seem too worried, but when the time for the execution came, his family caused a great uproar, trying to lessen Smith's suffering. During the execution process, he was hanged for about 15 minutes without dying, so he was lowered and taken to a nearby house to recover. On February 20th, 1706, John was released due to the traumatic experience he suffered from the failed execution. However, this was just the first of many surprises in Smith's life. After being freed, he returned to his old habits of theft, and less than 6 months later, he was arrested again for the same crime. Despite having been previously convicted, he managed to evade harsher punishment due to the complexity of his case. Clearly, Smith did not deserve the mercy granted to him, and he was arrested for the 3rd time for robbery. This time, it seemed that execution was inevitable, but just before his trial, the prosecutor died, leaving him free once again. People with such incredible luck are few, and the most surprising thing is that Smith's luck had not yet run out. On May 17, 1727, at the age of 66, John Smith was arrested for attempting to steal a lock with a friend. While his friend managed to escape,
At 66.
Smith was captured and brought before the authorities. It was discovered that he was trying to break into a warehouse, which earned him his 3rd conviction. He was sentenced to be transported as a prisoner to Virginia, United States. Smith requested that physical punishments be imposed on him, but the mayor rejected his request. Eventually, he was sent far from London, leaving his family behind. It is uncertain what happened to Smith after his relocation, but it is hoped that his luck accompanied him until the end of his life. Number 2.
Well, there's a lot of famous Smiths in Virginia, so if he made it there.
Okay, Timothy, I'm reading some of your comments, and they aren't getting very inappropriate, and it's starting to bother me. So if you can't be polite, go ahead and exit. Thank you.
Joseph Samuel. In 1795, a German man named Joseph Samuel was sentenced to be transported as a prisoner to England. However, what he did next was completely unthinkable, leading him directly to the death penalty, though fate had other plans for him. At the time, Britain had a penal settlement in Sydney, and Samuel, along with other prisoners, managed to escape from that settlement and return to England. After his escape, they robbed the house of a wealthy woman, and during the robbery, they killed the police officer who was guarding the house. Since the woman was wealthy and an officer had been killed, the authorities launched an intense manhunt to capture Samuel and his gang. During the trial, the woman specifically identified Samuel as one of the culprits. Samuel confessed to the robbery but denied having killed the officer. However, since he was the only one identified, he was sentenced to death by hanging, while the others were released due to a lack of evidence. On September 26, 1803, Samuel, along with other prisoners, was hanged. The ropes used for the execution were strong enough to support up to 450 kilograms, meaning they were more than capable of hanging a human. While the other prisoners died from strangulation, Samuel's rope broke and he fell to the ground. This left everyone stunned. The executioner quickly prepared another rope, also capable of supporting 450 kilograms, and placed it around Samuel's neck. He raised him again, but immediately after the cart beneath his feet was removed, the rope loosened, and Samuel fell to the ground once more. The executioner was confused, knowing he had adjusted the rope correctly. Samuel suffered an ankle sprain from the falls and was in great pain. Once again, the executioner prepared a new rope,
Good
ordered
Lord.
the cart to lift him
three.
up, and carefully adjusted the rope. This time, when the cart moved away, the rope failed for the third time, leaving
Three
Samuel
strikes.
falling to the ground again. The crowd began to cheer, calling for Samuel's release, and the situation grew violent. The chief of police ordered that the execution be halted until the governor's arrival. When the governor
Yes,
arrived
that
at the
batch of
scene
rope
and
should have
reviewed the
been
ropes,
recalled.
which showed no signs of being cut, and saw that the other prisoners had died with the same ropes, he agreed with the crowd that this was likely a sign from God that Joseph Samuel had not committed a crime worthy of execution. As a result, his sentence was commuted to life imprisonment. Number 1. Wenceslao Moguel. It's only fitting to close this video with a case that will leave you on the edge of your seat. Born on November 1st,
Oh, my.
1896, Wenceslao Moguel was a Mexican soldier under the command of General Francisco Villa. However, after the start of the Mexican Revolution, Wenceslao was captured and sentenced to death by firing squad. Being executed by firing squad is one of the most brutal forms of execution a condemned person can face, but somehow Wenceslao survived. During that execution, he was shot between 8 and 9 times in his body, and as a final measure, they shot him point blank in the head to ensure his death. But after everything was over, Wenceslao realized that he was still alive, although he decided to play dead to avoid being killed again. When his body was taken down, Wenceslao managed to crawl through the night to the church of Santiago Apostol, which was 3 blocks away. A member of the church found him and took him to his home, where he recovered. Though permanently scarred and disfigured, Wenceslao survived that execution. This case highlights how shocking human error can be and the tragedy behind the death penalty.
Crazy.
It baffles me, like some of those cases, especially in Alabama with all the failed lethal injections that they've done, how the last one they let the guy just hang there and all his wounds leak blood everywhere.
They didn't let him hang there long enough to bleed out, but
well, they said blood was dripping from his wounds as they let him lay there for like 30 minutes.
I think they're being a little
dramatic.
Yeah, I think so. Because I mean, just from an IV puncture, you will leak, but you're not going to like squirt out and keep. That's more like a slice or cut or something. So,
well, they did say he was badly wounded from all the wounds.
Well, I don't think they knew what they were doing either. So it's a pretty simple procedure starting an IV.
Well,
So,
how are we sick, Timothy? This is the asylum with Harley.
Obviously, he's not American, so that's okay. You know what?
This is a true crime podcast. So I think I'm going to ban you because some of your comments are not very appropriate. Thank you. Have a very nice day.
There you go. You're not going to figure out how to do that, so.
Well, over on like the side where the comments are, there's like the 3 little dots.
Mm-hmm.
And you click it and it'll say ban user and delete their comments.
Oh, okay. I don't think I have that in my studio, but I've never looked. For the most part, most of my audience was pretty. Was he on my channel?
Yeah, he came from your show.
Wow. Okay. I don't know who he was, so. But I did have a stalker in the past, so he could be rearing his ugly head again, so.
Yay for stalkers. Gotta love it.
I don't want to hire more lawyers.
Why not? That's always fun to do.
Oh, Jesus Christ. We were one of the first successful cases in Seattle of electronic harassment and stalking. And it stuck. They didn't appeal it any further. So
well, I mean, he was saying some comments in there that wasn't very.
Oh, well, my stalker was sending things to. He dug up my family and found my kids and was sending them pictures of inappropriate things and saying inappropriate things. And yeah,
I'm glad nobody knows my actual real name.
it's Bob. I'll tell him it's Bob.
Yeah, it's Bob. I'm Bob. Hi.
You know,
No, that's what I call my husband because he looks like Kevin Smith from Jay and Silent Bob. He looks just like Kevin Smith, so I call him Bob.
yeah, I was watching some channels on how to improve your YouTube stuff and do things, and they're like, you really shouldn't use your real name. And I'm like, it's a little late for that. So,
well, when I first started streaming for the Mod Squad, I did not even remotely want to use my real name. That's why my Facebook, none of my stream social medias are of my real name because, well, people from who watch, follow my Facebook page. Well, I don't want them to know my name.
there's a lot of freaky people out there.
Exactly. And some of the comments that he was saying, yeah, I'm good with people not knowing my real name.
Yeah, there's some sickos out there.
Wow. But on Alabama really needs to get their act together when it comes to lethal injection, or just not do lethal injection and find other means of execution.
Wasn't the last one in Alabama the last?
I think so.
Public execution. I was going to pull it up real quick.
Well, there was 2 lethal injections that
they
talked.
It was Florida.
Oh, the firing squad one.
Yeah, well, the firing squad one, I think like only one bullet actually hit him. So
the one that went through his face.
Yeah, that's crazy. No, the most recent one was in Florida, and his last words. His name was Glenn too, by the way, Glenn Rogers, and his last words were, "President Trump, keep making America great. I'm ready to go." That's me. That's diehard MAGA right there.
Yeah. So we've talked about this on the show before because we've done episodes of like criminals' last meal and their last words. What would be your last meal and your last word?
Ooh.
Like we've had some that's extravagant last meals.
Huh, that's hard to say. It'd be a toss-up between ribs and lasagna. It just depends on the mood. Last words, man. I did it my way. I don't know.
Me and Jeremy
follow. That'll be it.
That we would go all extravagant since it was our last meal. Why not?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'd have ice cream and I'd have like a 5-course
meal. Okay, the guy who did the Oklahoma bombing, Timothy McVeigh, his last meal was 4 pints of mint chocolate chip ice cream.
Wow.
That's all he wanted was that mint chocolate chip ice cream.
I wonder if you're allowed to like have a beer.
I don't know. I think there was some that had last meals.
Yeah, like, hook me up with a dogfish head, 90-minute, a steak. That'd be all right. So
let's see. And like there was some who had extravagant ones. Okay, like let's see. Ted Bundy, his last meal was he declined a special meal, so he was given the traditional steak, medium rare, eggs over easy, hash browns, toast with butter, jelly, milk, and juice. Because he declined his last meal, so that's what he got right there.
Nice.
That batch of rape should have been recalled. Oh, rope. Let's see. John Wayne Gacy, like his was 12 fried shrimp, a bucket of original crispy KFC chicken, French fries, and a pound of strawberries.
Interesting.
And it says prior to being convicted, Gacy had managed 3 KFC restaurants.
I want crystals. I want sliders as they're hanging me. I want it to be squirting out. So,
like I can't eat KFC very much. Even before my gastric bypass surgery, I couldn't really eat it because when I was pregnant with my daughter, I was working at KFC Taco Bell. And then they transferred me to an all-in-one KFC once I got further along to where the morning sickness would kick in. So I'd go into KFC and that smell would hit me in the face, and I would spend most of my shift in the bathroom getting paid to throw up. So now the smell of KFC, like, it has that horrible flashback of throwing up so much from it. Ugh.
Yeah, that no. It's rare. I go through spells of fried chicken. I guess KFC in the South here is probably about the best you can get unless you want spicy, and then you got to find a Bojangles. But
okay, when I lived in Oklahoma, our go-to was Church's Chicken. We love Church's Chicken because they had those honey biscuits, and it was so good. And then they closed down almost all the churches there. We move up here, and like there's Uncle Abe's, and they have really good chicken, or there's crispy crunchy chicken where they actually like marinate the chicken in this seasoning, so it's in the chicken, like they inject the chicken.
Oh, okay.
And well, Popeyes, of course.
Yeah, Popeyes. They're kind of I don't know.
They used to be really good, but like for sides, that's probably where I'd go is Popeyes for their sides because their mashed potatoes are really good. But their chicken has just gotten kind of old. Like every time we order it from there, it tastes like, you know how when... Okay, hello.
See on my channel?
Yep. They said, hey, Sports Kitty.
Yeah, well, I don't know. They're Peg Leg Pete, and I do know your probation officer's phone number, so.
Oh, well, I'm not a big fan of McDonald's. I used to work there, so I know the nastiness behind McDonald's.
Well, yeah, that's what they say about most places. If you've worked there, you won't eat their food. So,
well, okay, I worked at this pizza place called Antonio's, and like Drew Carey is from Ohio, so he did this big fundraiser here a couple years ago when I worked there, and they teamed up with this pizza place, and I would still eat at this pizza place because I know the quality of their food, and I know they don't. Well, when I work there, they don't shortchange stuff.
Gotcha.
I wouldn't say that.
I don't know that any of them are that healthy, but I think the best fast food burger has got to be Burger King. But every now and then you get a craving for a Big Mac and a chocolate shake. And then there's the midnight Wendy's bacon cheeseburger runs.
And you got to get the Frosty to dunk your fries into.
I don't do that. That's just wrong to me. So no, I don't do that.
Well, Wendy's has these new Frosties too. Like they have Pop-Tarts, strawberry Pop-Tarts in their Frosty now.
What? I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's their new Frosty that just came out. Like it's a strawberry it's vanilla with strawberry Pop-Tarts in it. I was like,
Okay.
Ooh, I wish I could eat that because that sounds really good, but my stomach would not.
Well, Pop-Tarts is coming out with a whole bunch of ice cream sandwiches.
That Grimace shake at McDonald's was nasty.
We did a show that talked about the Grimace shake, and
wasn't there like a thing where a whole bunch of people got sick because of the Grimace shake?
I'm not sure. We did it on the history of the green Grimace. So,
like breakfast wise, my husband loves Burger King's croissants, but I live where there's only like 2 Burger Kings, and I worked at one of them. And when that one got bought out by a new management, all the people that worked at that one moved to the other one. And I know how nasty they were. So I told him, I said, honey, I love you, but if you want Burger King croissants, you have to go to the next town.
Well, now breakfast, you got to talk about not Mrs. Winters. Their breakfast was delicious, but Chick-fil-A.
I like Chick-fil-A's, but see, I get just their breakfast portion patty, like the spicy chicken patty, because I can't. Bread doesn't agree with me, so I just do the portion patty or I get their bowl that has like the chicken and eggs and hash browns in it.
Okay. Yeah, Chick-fil-A for breakfast for the win. Now, when Mrs. Winters was around,
I have no clue what that is.
Oh man, it was. I think it was a Southern chain primarily.
But see, I'm from the South.
Chicken. Well, I don't know. They had a Cajun chicken biscuit that had bacon and their fried chicken on it, and a homemade biscuit, and oh my god, it was artery stopping good. So.
That sounds like Grandy's. Grandy's used to have that down south. Like it was so good. Or Del Rancho. Their steak sandwich supreme was so good.
We just got one of those in my part of Georgia. Yes, Chris, I throw the pickle out the window and slap it on the next person behind me's windshield as I go down the road. I can't stand a pickle. I can't stand a pickle on chicken, especially.
See, I always order extra pickles though.
No. I can't do that.
But see, like when I go to McDonald's, I get their double cheeseburger with no bun and extra pickles and onions and no ketchup.
Okay.
Well, I can't eat the bread, so
okay, gotcha.
What's the point of having to scrape everything off the bread? And
that's true. And I guess if you're cutting it down to such smaller portions, the pickle might be appropriate, but
pickles are 0 calories, so
okay. I still hate them.
You can eat a lot of pickles for 0 calories.
I am.
Well, I don't want Glenn's pickles he's throwing out his window.
Oh yeah. I just don't think pickles are not. I'm not a pickle guy, and so. And yes, if you want to drive behind me, we'll have pickles, probably a little onion splatter on your windshield. I cannot stand pickles on. Now I will occasionally eat a pickle. Very, very rarely. Like
I know your address, so I'll send you a jar of pickles.
It's already been done, but
well, they have these pickles called Best Made Pickles down south, and they're the best pickles ever. But you can't get them up north unless you order them on Amazon, and they're super expensive.
Now there is a spicy pickle that's out. That's not bad. I've tried it. It comes in these little snack bags in the refrigerated section. I tried that.
Oh, snap pickles.
Yeah, and it was like, I forget, some sriracha, flaming sriracha or something. It was pretty decent. It was hot as hell, but it was pretty decent.
You like the flaming sriracha?
I do. Yeah, I do prefer the hot stuff. So I put hot sauce on everything. Yes, Chris, even my pizza. I'm sorry. So
you sound like my kids. They go through like a gallon of hot sauce.
Well, in my house, I have separate salt and pepper shakers. I have a cayenne salt shaker, and then I have a jalapeno pepper shaker. So everything gets a little dash of each. My wife's like, well, how was it? And I'm like, it was better once I gave it a little kick.
Oh my, that's crazy.
It was palatable.
Palatable.
No, I don't tell Mrs. Sportcat that. She knows where I sleep, and she watches a lot of crime shows. So
I have a tank top that says roses are red, people are fake. I stay to myself so I don't end up on the first 48.
Oh, that's funny.
Well, that has a lot to do with true crime.
Yeah,
I like true crime.
I know. Yeah, I'm into some of it, but when you sent me the list, I was like, oh, God, I don't know anything to talk about with these people. But I watched the video and I was like, I can make it up. But now, if you were doing a case, that might be kind of cool. If we were like researching, Bob Smith was killed by somebody and you followed the evidence, that would be kind of cool.
That might have to be one of our next shows.
Yeah, there's plenty of them out there. If you want to do a paranormal one, there's one in, I'd have to look it up. I believe it was Johnson City, Tennessee. And she was attacked by Chris. I bet behind Glenn, that's not what you get. Well, you get a lot of hot air too. She was supposedly attacked by a pack of dogs, and the only problem was they couldn't find any dogs, and the neighbors said it was Dog Man. And the sheriff,
or like that one, what was it? The tall, skinny guy that we talked about last week. The Slenderman, how the girl was attacked and there was nothing there.
Yeah. I've heard true stories like that. And I'm going to have a guy on my show in a few weeks. Yes, I'll be coming back in a few weeks. And he's got some really crazy stories about stuff like that. So
interesting.
Yeah. We're going to be making a little switch on my show a little bit. We're going to lean less out of the paranormal and more into the entertainment. So, and I'm still going to do my news show every day. So I'm going to try my best to piss off the other side of the parties that's listening to me. So I'll leave it.
Okay. So we've got a little clip that we came up with for our new show when we actually have time to sit down and start it, and tell us what you think of this.
Well, that doesn't have any music to it, so we got to figure that out.
Yeah. Well, this is a little clip without the music. As soon as we figure out the music.
I spent all day yesterday. Well, I was watching TV back and forth. I spent all day yesterday trying to figure out, there's a program that you can make shows totally AI. And I was like, okay, I'll try it. And so I was just going to do a 3-minute short of like the 5 best Bigfoot stories. I could not get it to pronounce Bigfoot. It was calling him Bigfoot. And then the pictures it drew for the story, it had like aliens being picked up, picking people up from space. I was like, the pictures don't even go along with the Bigfoot. So I spent all day playing with that. And then I'm AI may take us over, but I don't think it's ready to take over this yet.
No, my son does graphics design, and he is just not thrilled with AI at all.
Oh yeah, I know a lot of artists, and we've had some on the show, comic book artists, that they hate it. So,
well, my son did the little thumbnail for the Asylum with Harley and Joker.
Oh, nice.
That one, and then on the actual like pay Facebook page where it's got Joker on one side and Harley on the other with the little thing down the center where it says live on it, he did that too.
Need to have him make one for me.
I'm sure he could.
Yeah, just a yellow cartoon cat that looks rather violent.
He's really good at what he does, so I'm sure I could get him to do one for you.
Put a fire helmet on it. Yeah, I'm good with that. But yeah, so yeah, we're going to make some changes to. I'm still going to do the daily news show. My Australian fans apparently have been missing me. I've been getting messages, which I think is amazing. So thank them if they're happen to be listening. And I'm going to continue the Paranormal Guys on Wednesday nights. And then I think we're just going to toss in some stuff here and there. I mean, you're going to do some things. So I don't know. I don't know where it's all going to lead, but I've decided that I'm going to try and have more fun with it, because here of late, it's become more of a burden. So, and I think it's just because what's going on in my life, but
exactly.
I mean, there's a lot of stress, but so yeah, it probably won't be this week. Well, I know it won't be this week. Tiffany's getting married this week. I got to go give her away next week. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I told her
And
I
I
didn't
think-
want to give her away. She came
I
back.
think we may have to reschedule my 1954 Billboard bracket. I'll be so glad to get out of the 50s music. I mean, nothing's wrong with it. I mean, I would be perfect dressing in the poodle skirts and all that, but that was one generation of music you actually had to be living in to.
Yeah, I agree. The slick grease-backed hair and stuff like that. Brenda, I will be at a wedding party, so unfortunately I will not be able to do that. But thank you for the offer. The 50s did produce a lot of great music, but the problem is now everything's so electronic, whatever. It sounds more
Robotic
fake.
and
Yeah, and so hey Ken, welcome. And so when you listen to it, it's still got that vinyl sound to it. It's got a distinct thing. And that was one thing I liked about musicians, or performers back then. Usually they did more than just sing. They could play an instrument, so which today there's a lot of pop stars that can't play anything, and there'd be nothing without voice tuner. So,
and it's all robotic and sounds like complete crap because you can't understand what they're saying.
Well, if Brenda will tell you that she believes they are what do they call them? But they were grown in a lab and bred for this. So Taylor Swift's alien. So she's a very rich alien at that. So she was just in Knoxville over the weekend. Actually, not far from me.
And now they're starting the rumor that she's pregnant and.
Oh Lord.
And she got married secretly that nobody knows about. I don't see that. I see if Taylor Swift was to get married.
See, told you I got Brenda fired up.
I mean, if she was to get married, she'd make a big.
Yeah, that would be a big deal because he's a big deal in the NFL, and
it wouldn't be hid and quiet with just a few family. No, it would be big.
Oh yeah, everybody in Hollywood.
It'd be like I'm not comparing her to Princess Diana, but it'd be like a royal wedding setup the way they would be.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that. I mean, they might have a private ceremony for them and family, but there would be some pomp and circumstance with that. So I agree there. I don't think they are, because he's working on preseason right now. He's very busy. So,
oh my gosh! So last night was the Money in the Bank.
On wrestling. How did it go? I was wondering about that. I meant to ask you.
Okay, give me 1 second. I have to step away. So entertain.
Oh, you're going to leave me in charge of your show?
Yes, I'm going to leave you to entertain. Most of them are your show peoples anyways.
Well, I'm glad they're here, and they should go over and find your channel and like, follow, share, subscribe, and all that. Give her a thumbs up. She's working on growing her channel, and it's not easy. So it's something you have to work at. And sometimes things happen in life that you can't control, and well, you have to take a pause. So I'm just, she asked me to come on and do this tonight. I think I did last week or the week before, and everything in the house was quiet and settled and I could. So it was a nice little break. Plus I didn't have to worry about producing it and doing any of the stuff backstage. I just show up and act stupid, which I'm really good at. So, but my fans and my support group in my staff, and I say that funny, jokingly, they've been great to me. And so I appreciate all the comments and texts and stuff I've gotten from everybody. I've been overwhelmed with, like I said, I've gotten messages from people in Australia that miss me. And I'm like, what the hell? Why do you miss me? So,
the start of the show, almost all the Hills won. For the female Money in the Bank, Hill won. Then Dirty Dom won his match.
Okay.
And then Becky Lynch won hers, but she's gone heel now. So she won.
She's gone bad?
Yeah, she's gone bad. And then the men, Money in the Bank, her husband Seth Rollins won. He's gone heel.
I didn't know she was married to him. Okay.
Yeah, they're married. Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins are married.
Oh,
and
okay.
like they both gone heel. And then at the end, it was Jey Uso and Cody Rhodes against John Cena and I can't even think of his name, the guy from Ohio who started as a YouTube sensation.
Oh, I don't know who you're talking about.
He's not that important anyways. But then, so John Cena's heel. Everyone knows John Cena's heel right now.
I know. That's weird.
And so he hit Cody Rhodes with his belt. That's his one thing that he does whenever he tries to cheat. He hits him with his belt. And so R-Truth here recently made an announcement they weren't renewing his contract and that he was leaving. Well, last night R-Truth came back and beat the crap out of John Cena and took his belt and smashed it in John Cena's face.
Wow. I liked R-Truth.
So Cody Rhodes pinned John Cena, and Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso won.
All right, I'm going to ask you. Do you believe it's real?
No, it's all fake.
Okay.
You could tell it's fake. Okay, guys, I have to call it a show because my children are being something else.
She's got to crack the whip. So.
Yes, I do. Okay, we will see you guys next time.
That's right. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you for tuning in. Please hit that thumbs up button and go find Harley's channel under the
Asylum with Harley and Joker.
There you go. Go like, follow, and share her as well. Give her some love too. So, guys, I will see you soon. Maybe sooner than you think. So, who knows?
Okay, bye.
Bye now.